Well, we're getting more information on the kinds of things that were targeted and also the aircraft that were used to target them. We got a statement from CENTCOM, the Central Command, the United States force that is in charge of all of that area for U.S. response. They said, quote, U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets with numerous aircraft to include long-range bombers flown from the United States. The airstrikes employed more than 125 precision munitions. The facilities that were struck included command and control operation centers, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicle storages and logistics and munition supply chain facilities of militia groups and their Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps sponsors who facilitated attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. Now, I've just come off a call with the National Security Council and a general from the army who gave us a bit more information on that. We can confirm now that these strikes took place across 7 locations, 4 of which were in Syria, 3 are in Iraq. The Iraqi government was told in advance that these strikes would be happening, and within those 7 areas, there were 85 individual targets that were targeted by the United States. And they used the B-1 bomber, which was flown from the United States to attack these targets, which is a significant development because they normally are larger aircraft which can carry a bigger payload. They've got over 20 cruise missiles on them normally, and that's much bigger than the F-15s that have been used in recent weeks as well. So that could be there to send a message to Iran that it has the range to reach Iran should it be needed. Now, the National Security Council said that these targets were chosen on, quote, irrefutable evidence that they had been used in attacks on U.S. bases. They said that the strikes took around 30 minutes and that all U.S. aircraft now are safely out of harm's way. Now, we are also learning that some of those targets in Syria were along the Euphrates River, a logistical supply line that was used to get those drones and other munitions along the river from Iraq into Syria. And they were also sites that had been struck before in November by another set of strikes that the US had put out. Now, Joe Biden has responded to this for the first time. He's in his house in Delaware at the moment, but he is keeping abreast of what's happening. He said, quote, our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. The United States does not seek conflict in the Middle East or elsewhere in the world, but let all those who might seek to do us harm know this. If you harm an American, we will respond. The United States once again saying it is not seeking war with Iran, and that is something that we had confirmed when we heard from a senior administration official through CNN that there will not be strikes directly on Iran in the coming days.
Fraser, the US president, as you mentioned, says he doesn't want an escalation in the region, but how can he ensure this? Because we don't know how Iran's going to respond.
Well, the United States really is trying to thread a needle here. Joe Biden is trying to strike a balance between escalation on one hand and making sure that another war doesn't break out in the Middle East. That, of course, something that's not gone well for the United States throughout history. And also not allowing the death of these 3 American service members on Sunday to go without an appropriate response. Now, of course, we've seen other strikes on Iranian-backed militias and groups in the area in recent days. Of course, the Houthis in Yemen, but also elsewhere in Syria and Iraq. And it appears that those deterrent strikes have not deterred any attacks on U.S. assets. So the U.S. is now giving a bigger response. However, some analysts are saying that the response didn't go far enough. They said the fact that there was 5 days between this attack by the drone on the base in Jordan and then the U.S. response gave the Iranians and the Iranian militant groups time to move their assets out of the area, notably especially the Iranian specialists, the trainers who were there to train these Iranian-backed militant groups. So the U.S., of course, though, trying to strike that balance between does it strike and make the situation worse? But we are now hearing from the National Security Council that there has been no contact with Iran since that strike on Sunday. That was something that had been floated across multiple US media networks, that perhaps there were some back-channel communications with Tehran to say, listen, get your assets out of the way because we're going to conduct these strikes and we don't want this to be an escalation. But the National Security Council confirming recently that that has not happened. Now, that's something that GOP lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, wanted to see. But of course, it's easier said than done when you're actually in the hot seat of the presidency. Joe Biden erring on the side of caution, but also has room to escalate should he need. There are other options on the table. He could go for more Iranian facilities which are directly used by the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and of course those vessels that are operating in the Persian Gulf as well. So Joe Biden potentially showing that he could have gone further, but also erring on the side of caution, whilst also having a strong response.